The greatest disease, evil thoughts. Geronda. I am anxious and can't sleep when I have a problem to deal with. Your basic problem is your many thoughts. If you didn't have all these thoughts, you would be able to accomplish much more in your assigned duties and in your spiritual life. Here is one way to avoid all these thoughts. When you think of something that, let's say, needs to be done tomorrow, tell yourself, this work is not for today. I will think about it tomorrow. Also, when you have to make a decision, do not trouble yourself with the thought of how to make the best decision, and thus end up constantly procrastinating. Make a decision and move on. Then let God take care of the rest. Try to avoid being overly meticulous and scholastic about too many details, which will only confuse your mind. Do whatever you are able to do with philorimo, simplicity, and above all, with great trust in God. This way we oblige God, in a manner of speaking, to help us when we place our hopes and our future in His hands. Even a healthy person will become useless with too many thoughts running through his mind. One who is sick and suffering can justifiably have worrisome thoughts. But one who is healthy and yet becomes confused and suffers from sinister thoughts deserves a straitjacket. To be healthy and yet tormented by one's thoughts is a terrible sickness. In our times, one of the greatest illnesses is the vain thoughts of worldly people. People can have all the good things in life except good thoughts. They are tormented simply through not facing up to things in a spiritual manner. For example, someone sets out to go somewhere but has a little car trouble and is a little late getting to his destination. If he has a good thought, he will say, perhaps the benevolent God brought this delay in order to prevent a possible accident. How can I thank you, my God, for this? So he praises God for the delay. On the contrary, if he does not have a good thought, he will not face the incident in a spiritual manner. He will curse and blame God. What a misfortune, what a useless delay, and where is God in all this? When we accept whatever happens to us with a good and positive thought, we are helped. While on the contrary, we are tormented and come apart at the seams emotionally and physically when negative and evil thoughts prevail. Once, years ago, we got on a truck which had some boards for seats, in order to go from Uranopolis, Chalkidiki to Thessaloniki. The truck's interior was a mess, suitcases, orange crates, fish, empty and dirty fish crates being returned, students from the Athonite school, some sitting and some standing, monks, lay people. One layman came and sat next to me. He was a little stout, and because he was somewhat squeezed, he began to complain loudly. What a state! A little further inside the truck stood a poor monk, surrounded by crates, so you could only see his head. In the meantime, as the truck bumped its way along the cart track, the monk had to remain standing and hold on to the wobbling crates to prevent them from falling on him. With all of this going on, the other fellow was complaining of being squeezed a little in his seating arrangements, so I told him, how can you be complaining when you see what that monk is enduring? So I asked the monk, how are you managing, Father? And with a smile he told me, Geronda, it's better here than hell. One man was tormented even though he was able to sit, while the other was content to stand and be virtually buried under all those crates. And this was a 2-hour drive, not just a short ride. The layman's mind was on the comfort he would have had if he were riding on a bus, while the monk was thinking of the suffering in hell and was happy enough to ride in a filthy truck. He was thinking, "We are going to reach our destination in 2 hours and get out, while the poor people in hell will be tormented forever. After all, there it is, hell, and not some unpleasant accommodations. Glory be to God, it is better here." Geronda. How do you explain the varying degree of trust held by 2 novices toward their elder? Thoughts. One can have fault-finding thoughts about everything and everyone. If a man does not have a good thought and does not remove self-interest and desires from his activities, that is, if he continues to act selfishly, he cannot be helped even by a saint. A saintly elder, even Saint Anthony and all the saints together, cannot help such a selfish man. Not even God himself can help such a person. Even though he desires it very much, when someone loves himself and is selfish, he interprets everything in a way that suits his inner self. Some people interpret things carnally or in a sinful manner. Others in whatever manner suits their ego. And gradually these irrational interpretations become second nature to them. No matter how you behave, they will be scandalized. There are some people who soar if you pay them some attention. If you tell them an encouraging and heartening word, if you don't pay any attention to them, they are deeply saddened and have an extreme reaction, which comes from the tempter, the devil. Or they may see some activity going on and say, "Aha, this is what must be happening." Later they convince themselves that this is indeed what happened. Or they may see someone in a rather thoughtful mood and imagine that he has something against them, while in fact the other person is pensive simply because he is troubled by a personal concern. Some time ago, someone came to me and said, "Why did so and so used to speak to me but doesn't now? Could it be something I said?" So I told him directly, "Look, he may have seen you but not noticed you, or had something on his mind, such as a sick friend who needed a doctor, or the necessary currency to travel abroad, and so forth. In fact, the other person really was worried about a sick friend who needed to be taken care of, but because this man was expecting undivided attention, and his friend did not stop to talk to him, he allowed a whole series of bad thoughts to go through his mind."